Yo, tap in with me right now, because Joe Rogan just walked up to a microphone and dropped something so heavy the whole internet damn near tilted sideways. He came out swinging, no warning shots, no soft intro, and laid out the real reason Diddy might not walk out of that federal building alive. And I don't mean parole denials. I don't mean another sad little press release. I mean, Rogan basically told the world that the walls closing in on that man right now are the same walls a lot of very powerful people have been quietly praying wouldn't close. Lock in right here, because once you hear the full picture, you're gonna understand why the streets are already writing his obituary while he's still breathing. Let me lay the paperwork on the table for you real quick. Diddy is sitting in FCI Fort Dix right now after the federal case wrapped with a 50-month bid, 5 years of supervised release, and a $500,000 fine tied to the transportation charges. He got moved there after that ugly stretch at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where whispers in the room say he woke up one morning with a blade at his neck and got jumped before the transfer paperwork even cleared. That alone tells you the temperature. That alone tells you the environment he's breathing in every single day. But Rogan is saying the real threat isn't the inmates in his unit. The real threat is what's building on the outside, and it's building fast, and it's building loud, and it has the man's whole legal team sweating through their suits. And this is where it gets crazy. Because the first name Rogan dropped, the first domino in this whole conversation, is Clive Davis, the legendary record executive. The man who built empires out of Whitney Houston, Barry Manilow, Bruce Springsteen, Pink Floyd, and yes, a hungry young kid named Sean Combs walking into a New York office with more vision than pocket money and more hustle than the room could handle. Clive is gone. 94 years old. Gone in the middle of the storm. And the second that news hit the block, Diddy reportedly broke all the way down. Not tears. Not a quiet moment. Wailing. The kind of cry a man lets out when he realizes the last umbrella just got yanked out of his hand while it's still pouring buckets. Because ride with me for a second. Clive Davis wasn't just a mentor. Clive was the gatekeeper. He was the man who allegedly showed a young Puff how the industry really turns, who taught him which rooms to walk into, which conversations never touch paper, and which handshakes actually mean something behind the velvet rope. Whispers in the room say the connection ran deeper than business, deeper than paperwork, and deeper than anybody publicly admitted for 30 years. And when reporters caught Clive walking out of a building and shoved a microphone in his face asking about the raids on bad boy properties, you know what Clive said? Nothing. Not a syllable. Not a blink. That silence right there? That's the sound of a man protecting something. That silence right there is exactly why folks online are saying Clive was working the phones behind the scenes with the family and the legal team, trying to engineer an early release, trying to move mountains from a hospital room. And now that Clive is gone, that engineering machine? Powered down. Circling back to Rogan's core point, without Clive pulling strings from the outside, Puff is standing on his own 2 feet inside those walls for the first time in his adult life. And he has never had to do that. Ever. Pump the brakes for a second, because I need you to feel the full weight of this. Up until Clive's last breath, the plan was in motion. His lawyers were pushing the appeal hard, arguing that the sentencing judge relied on acquitted conduct, meaning the judge factored in things the jury said the man was not guilty of. Reports say he's sober now, working the prison laundry unit, finished the rehab program, staying quiet, keeping his head all the way down. His projected release date reportedly got moved up to around April 15th of 2028. His mother, Janice Combs, and his legal army have been public, defending him, painting the picture of a reformed man ready to step back into society with clean hands and a rehabilitated heart. That was the plan. That was the runway. And then the fresh leaks started dropping, and every single wheel on that runway caught fire simultaneously. Because Rogan didn't stop at the death. Rogan pointed to something else. New footage. New video. Footage that people are saying, if it's what everybody thinks it is, could keep Diddy locked down way past 2028. I'm not gonna sensationalize what nobody's confirmed yet, but I will say this. The lawyers on his team are moving faster than usual right now. That's not a coincidence. That's fear. That's a legal squad watching a clock they don't control anymore. And it gets darker from here, because more witnesses keep coming forward. Audria English filed a lawsuit describing an entire cycle of arranged companionship at those parties, starting after her boyfriend auditioned for a modeling gig back in the early 2000s. She says the situation escalated fast. She says her past in adult entertainment got used against her like a weapon. She says she was pushed into scenes at those white parties in the Hamptons and Miami where the champagne went down her throat and the world went black behind her open eyes. And Audria pointed to tapes. Tapes, she says, are proof of exactly how far the game went inside those private rooms. Then you got April Lamprose. She filed her own claim describing a night in a Soho hotel back in the 90s, after the mogul promised her mentorship in the fashion world. She says she remembers laying in that bed. She says she remembers the man on top of her. She says she left and swore she was done, but the love bombing pulled her back in, promises of career doors flying open as long as he stayed in her corner. Then Crystal McKinney, 22 years old, meets him at Fashion Week, gets promised the world, ends up in a studio with substances and misconduct she is still carrying to this day. You see the pattern? Every single one of these stories has the same exact shape. Young talent, big promise, closed door, lasting damage. And every single one of these stories overlaps with a world he allegedly moved through side by side with Epstein-adjacent circles. That is not a coincidence. That is a business model. Rogan connected that dot too. He talked about a young Justin Bieber, fresh from Canada, barely 13 years old, standing inside Clive Davis parties, standing next to a Diddy who bragged on camera about spending 48 straight hours with the kid. 48 hours. The man said on camera, "We can't really disclose what we're doing," and called it a 15-year-old's dream. Old clips. Uncut. Still floating around the internet like radioactive waste. And Bieber later, breaking down publicly, saying he was young and inside the industry and did not know where to turn, saying he would not wish any of it on anybody. Lock in with what Rogan is really saying here. If more of those tapes hit, if fresh charges land, then every appeal the family and the lawyers are fighting for is dead on arrival. Instead of walking free in 2028, we're looking at a defendant facing brand new counts stacked on top of the old ones. And that is a Sean Combs who never sees a free sidewalk again in this lifetime. Now, follow me carefully, because this is where the story gets truly ugly. Rogan didn't just talk about who's coming for Diddy legally. Rogan flipped the coin and asked who Diddy might come for if he ever does walk out. And once you follow that logic all the way to the end, you understand why some very powerful people might not want him breathing free air ever again. Cassie sits at the very top of that alleged revenge list. Cassie sat in a federal courtroom, visibly pregnant, dress form-fitting, head held high, and never once made eye contact with the defendant. Cassie described the freak-offs, the control, the chokehold he allegedly kept on every single part of her life. She described the to-do lists, the incessant texts, the appearance policing, the hair rules, the nail rules, the fear of blackmail because so many of those private moments were recorded on hotel room cameras. And Cassie backed all of it up with male escort testimony and that infamous hotel hallway footage the entire world has already watched 100 times. To a man sitting in a cell, Cassie's testimony reads like a betrayal. Rogan is saying she'd better move smart, because a Sean Combs who ever tastes freedom again is a Sean Combs who may not forgive. But here's the flip. Whispers in the room are saying if certain people want Cassie safe, then he has to stay locked down permanently. Circle that thought and hold it. Because the next name in that same conversation is Big Homie, Diddy's former head of security turned public whistleblower. Big Homie already left the United States. He said out loud on a podcast that he doesn't trust the streets anymore, that he doesn't trust who might reach for him, and that he made an agreement with his own mother to stay abroad indefinitely. That is not a man who feels safe. That is a man who is watching every doorway. Then you got Cat Williams. Season this how you want, but Cat Williams sat on that podcast and looked the entire world in the eye and said he turned down $50 million 4 separate times to keep his dignity intact. 4 times. $50 million. Kat said Puff tried to pull him into a certain world and Kat looked him in the face and told him no. Kat said he's got receipts for every single decision. Kat said that's why he sleeps free at night. If the mogul ever walks out those doors, is Kat Williams on the list? A lot of folks online are saying absolutely yes. Aubrey O'Day already talked about seriously considering leaving the country. Dawn Richard testified in that trial, corroborated Cassie's story, and even described a violent moment involving a skillet swung across a kitchen. Jay-Z cut ties fast when the federal charges first hit the wire. 50 Cent has been running memes and a docuseries trailer for months on end. Every single one of them, according to the streets, is on the alleged revenge list. Some of them have already received threats. And that kind of fear? That kind of fear creates motive on all sides of this chessboard. Motive to keep him locked away. Motive to silence him before he silences anyone else. Rogan basically laid out the math and said when this many enemies align while your only outside protector just took his final breath, the statistical risk of not making it out those walls alive goes vertical. Straight up vertical. Yo, pause and connect the dots with me in real time. Clive Davis is gone, which means outside protection is gone. New tapes and new lawsuits mean the release date is not guaranteed anymore. Enemies on the outside have every reason to want the man silenced before he tastes fresh air. The prison environment itself is already violent, already dangerous, already claimed one attempt on him. Everything is unraveling like a slow burn nobody in his camp knows how to put out. And here's the philosophical twist Rogan snuck into the middle of the conversation. Diddy allegedly built his empire studying those private rooms, those hidden circles, that Clive Davis taught chessboard where power gets moved without paperwork ever hitting a lawyer's desk. He was the student, and then he became the professor. But whispers in the room say the exact same game he mastered is now the game turning on him. Isolation inside those walls. Lifelines severed on the outside. Young accusers surfacing with tapes nobody knew existed. Pressure cooker environment where things escalate in minutes instead of years. And outside forces that do not want loose ends still sitting on a podcast microphone one day telling their side of a story that could unravel entire fortunes. Rogan came back around to this exact point mid-broadcast. He laid out that when the enemies align and the shields disappear at the same time, the numbers say a man inside doesn't survive. And listen carefully, folks online are saying the mogul was crying harder over losing Clive than over anything else in the entire sentencing chapter. Others are saying what's done in the dark comes to light, and light is a physical thing you cannot outrun inside a jail cell. The biggest question hanging over everything right now is whether he makes it long enough to ever see the outside world again. One user online wrote, Cassie had to relive that trauma. She's so brave. Justice will prevail. Another wrote, the fact that he kicks her while she's already on the ground is pathetic and miserable. Disgusting. A third wrote, she was held hostage. This man needs to rot in jail for the rest of his life. He's dark and evil. And one more wrote, if he does that in a hotel hallway with cameras rolling, God only knows what he did somewhere private. That's the temperature. That's the room. That's the atmosphere the man is walking into every single time a new headline drops on his name. And here's where I really want you to sit with something for a minute. Ashton Kutcher. LeBron. Meek Mill. The list of celebrities who publicly said the phrase, ain't no party like a Diddy party, is longer than a CVS receipt on Black Friday. Half of them are pretending they never went. The other half are pretending they never saw a single thing. Meek Mill even went on video going after the mogul hard, calling himself No Diddy Gang, and the internet clapped back on Meek instantly. One user wrote, you wasn't saying all this when you was bouncing around like a bunny. Another wrote, now he's on jail. He was your daddy a few minutes ago. Another wrote, you can see Meek's broken all in his eyes. That's effed up. Another wrote, Meek looked traumatized. When your former inner circle is trying to distance themselves this loud, this fast, this publicly, you do not need a jury to tell you the entire room already shifted underneath you. You already know. Now let's talk about the appeal on the table right now, because this is critical to the whole picture. His legal team walked into a federal courtroom recently and argued in front of a panel of judges that he should be released immediately because the sentencing judge relied on acquitted conduct. Acquitted conduct means factors the jury said he was not guilty of, but the judge factored into the final sentence anyway. Up until last year, judges were legally allowed to do exactly that. His lawyers are arguing the rule changed. The panel hasn't ruled yet, but the defense wants an answer fast because his current outdate sits at April 2028. If that appeal wins, he walks early. If that appeal loses, he stays right where he is. And if new charges land while that appeal is still pending, he stays for a lot longer than 2028. He stays potentially forever. Circling back to Rogan's core theory, this is exactly why he's saying Diddy might not make it out them prison walls alive. Because it isn't one problem. It's 5 separate problems stacked on top of each other, all detonating at the exact same moment. Rogan basically painted the picture of a man who spent decades inside every dangerous room at the top of the industry, who allegedly built leverage on hundreds of people, whose only outside protector just took his last breath, whose accusers keep multiplying by the week, whose old friends keep distancing themselves in public, and who now sits inside a facility where a blade already found his neck once. That is a man running out of runway fast. And here's the part that keeps folks up at night. The people who allegedly gave him the keys to the game in the first place, the circles that operated behind Clive, the ones whose names never made it into any court filing anywhere, do they want him healthy? Do they want him walking? Do they want him sitting on a podcast one day telling his own version of the story with a bottle of water in his hand and a microphone 6 inches from his mouth? Follow me on that question. Because that answer is exactly why Rogan sounded so certain. That answer is exactly why the streets keep saying those walls will close on the man before any calendar gets a chance to hand him a release paper. Eyes up on this final piece before I get out of here. Cassie. Big Homie. Cat Williams. Aubrey O'Day. Don Richard. Justin Bieber's team. The Epstein-adjacent survivors who are still watching every single headline drop. Every single one of them wants a Diddy who never sees the sky again. Some want that for pure revenge. Some want that for personal safety. Some want that for total silence. Different motives, same result. And the man is standing in the middle of that Venn diagram right now, sober, quiet, folding sheets in the prison laundry unit, praying his mother's phone calls turn into a miracle. That's the picture. That's the whole picture. That's the map Rogan sketched out on a podcast and the whole internet is still catching up to. Let me stretch that map a little wider for you, because there's angles most people are still sleeping on. Think about the executive rooms where deals for artist contracts, publishing splits, and touring rights got carved up in the shadows. Think about how many private phone numbers Diddy has locked in his head right this second. Every powerful person who ever picked up a drink at one of those white parties is now doing the math in their own private meetings. If Diddy ever gets a book deal from behind those walls, if Diddy ever gets a documentary microphone pointed at his face, if Diddy ever decides to swap information for time off his sentence, entire empires shake. Entire foundations crack. That is exactly why Rogan sounded like he was reading a threat assessment instead of hosting a podcast episode. And do not forget the money angle for 1 second. Diddy's financial team has been unloading assets, restructuring holdings, and trying to protect what's left of the fortune while civil suits pile up on the desk like unpaid parking tickets. That $55 million Star Island mansion? Sold under legal pressure. Homes across the country under scrutiny. Business partners scrubbing his name off contracts overnight. Every single dollar spent on legal fees is a dollar not available to grease any wheels on the outside. Diddy's whole empire is being dismantled while Diddy watches from a laundry room folding somebody else's sheets. That is not the situation of a man who has options. That is the situation of a man watching the exit doors close in real time. Now let me pull one more thread for you, because Rogan hinted at this on the pod and I don't want it to slip past you. The rumors around Epstein Island footage. That word alone changes the whole conversation. If any tape emerges linking Diddy or anyone from that inner bad boy orbit to that specific location, we are not talking about early release anymore. We are talking about a completely different legal chapter opening up. We are talking about federal agencies stacking brand new counts. We're talking about civil floodgates. We're talking about international attention no PR team on Earth could contain. Rogan did not confirm that tape exists. Rogan didn't have to. Just the possibility of that tape existing is already changing how Diddy's lawyers are strategizing behind closed doors right now. They are no longer fighting for freedom in 2028. They are fighting to make sure their client is even alive to file the next motion. And let's not forget the political layer of all this. Diddy reportedly wanted a Trump pardon. That door slammed shut. Trump publicly played him off, made jokes about the situation, and moved on like it was nothing at all. That was the last political lifeline in the deck. No pardon means the sentence stands. No pardon means the appeal is the only remaining path. No pardon means Diddy is not walking out of that federal building on a technicality anytime soon. And with public opinion sitting exactly where it is right now, with survivor after survivor stepping forward with fresh audio and fresh video circulating on TikTok every single week, no politician on any ticket wants their name anywhere near a pardon with Diddy's name on it. That door is not just closed. That door is bricked over. So the real question I'm leaving on the table for you tonight is this. Does the man survive long enough to ever see freedom again? Or do the same rooms he mastered decide he is too much of a liability alive? And if the worst happens, if Diddy never walks out them walls again, who benefits the most? Who sleeps the deepest? Whose closet stays the cleanest? Because that is the name we should all be watching. That is the name Rogan didn't say out loud on the podcast, but the name every single clue in this entire story keeps quietly pointing to. Drop your take in the comments right now. Tell me who you think stands to gain the most if Diddy never touches concrete again. Tell me if you think the appeal wins. Tell me if you think new charges land before 2028. Tell me if you think Cassie is truly safe. Hit that like button hard, subscribe if you're not already tapped in with the family, and stay locked in because the next drop coming down the pipeline is even bigger than this one. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.